The downtown coordinator for the City of Chelsea, and I'm here with Tom Ambrosino, who is the city manager. Thanks for coming by, Tom.
My pleasure. It's always great to see people engaged on Broadway.
So I know a lot of people have questions about what's happening in this building. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, we're going to put together a request for proposals. Our hope is that we can develop some residential units above and activate the bottom floor with some commercial space or community space. And hopefully we can get that RFP on the street in the next 6 months or so, and maybe have something happening sometime this time next year.
So what do you think about this exhibit that's going on here?
I love the photographs. I think they're fabulous, and to see the photographer here and some of the persons who were in the pictures when they were young, it's fascinating.
Well, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
So I'm here with Leo Robinson, one of the city councilors. So tell us what you think about this exhibit.
Well, the exhibit is wonderful, and actually Ani and I go back a lot of years here in the city. Ani used to be the photographer for the Chelsea Record, and has taken thousands and thousands of photographs of people at Chelsea and scenes in Chelsea.
So do you have any stories behind any of these photographs? You recognize anyone?
Well, I recognize some of the kids over here. One has passed on. There's one standing right there. He's in the photograph, and some of the other faces that used to walk around Chelsea.
So since these photos are Chelsea from the 70s and 80s, when you look back at them now, how do you think the city has changed?
The city has come a long way. There's a lot of positive things happening in our community. I think we need to keep our focus and make sure that we stay the course.
Is there a story of Chelsea that comes out when you look at these sort of, what's the portrait that it
the picture that strikes me is the one where the kids are jumping rope and hanging in the park, because that was how we were brought up here, was hanging in the park. And going back at Chelsea, like for July 4th, the city councilors used to get together and do events in their districts in the park, races, and they would barbecue and they'd give away prizes and stuff like that. So yeah, go right ahead, Mike. And I go, and that's what made Chelsea. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Okay, thank you.
This might look familiar to folks who have been to the exhibit. So who are you, and how are you connected here?
Little man right here named John Wynnum.
There you are. Now, do you remember that day?
No, I don't remember it at all.
No.
But numerous people remember me as this picture.
So would you often be sitting on that step?
I imagine so. My son believes it's the house next door to my house on Congress.
Are you still on that street?
Yes, I am.
Oh, wow.
50 years.
Wow.
Same house.
So I'm here with Rachel Martin, who is a contemporary photographer for the Chelsea Record, but the world of the local newspaper photographer has changed a lot. What does the job look like now?
The job kind of now looks more like I live way out in Newton. I'm in the suburbs, and I get an email sent to 10 of us. Here's the job. Who wants it? You say whether or not you're available, and 2 days later, Rachel Martin's been assigned, and I get an address and a time. And they send you all over the place.
So back in the day, the Chelsea Record was 5 days a week. All the reporters and the photographers lived in the city. So now you're all over the spot.
Yeah, the local papers definitely are not sticking to local employees any longer. And the turnaround is still fast, even though it's not 5 days a week. Like, my deadline for this is tomorrow at noon.
Wow.
So they still kind of want quick deadline, because you don't have to develop in print anymore. It's so much faster now to get photos taken and sent back out.
Yep.
Just to get them processed, it takes you 30 minutes to see your film. I can have this imported, processed, and emailed in 30 minutes. So yeah, whole new world.
So is that good? You kind of run in, or and it's new every day, or?
I don't mind it. It allows you to build your own schedule. I don't have to work for one paper 5 days a week. So I can kind of pick up jobs, see all the different neighborhoods, go to a lot of different events, which is awesome. But I do kind of miss the darkroom. I was trained in darkroom and I like the process. So it does feel a little bit impersonal to click and send, which is why you don't get shots like this anymore.
Yeah, so as a
You
photographer,
have to know people and really know them and know your neighborhood to get a shot like that.
yeah, so which one of those photos stands out for you?
This nice lady here on the right, the smaller image, and then there's a guy way on the end that's quite close up, and it actually distorts his face a little because of the curve of the lens is why that happens. And those two he really had to talk to them and really had to know them for them to allow him to get that close. And you don't see that anymore. Not with a newspaper photographer, not with somebody who's on the move.
Yeah.
So those are really cool.
Great. Well, thank you so much for talking to us.
Sure.
We are here with Arnold Jarmak, the photographer, formerly with the Chelsea Record, who captured all these amazing images from Chelsea back in the 60s or 70s and 80s. So congratulations on such a beautiful exhibit.
Well, thank you very much. It's a beautiful night. We're here on Broadway in Chelsea. We got some nice Chelsea people down here visiting with us, and we're having a great time. So the pictures are going to be visible for the next month, 24 hours a day. So if you want to see some nice old pictures of Chelsea, you can come down anytime.
So you told me most of these photos were taken very near the spot.
Yeah, it's great. I really love having the exhibit here because on Broadway, almost all of the pictures were taken within a close area of where we are now. And I love these pictures. They're people who were in Chelsea and they were on Broadway, and they're all here. They're back here now. They've been gone for a while, but they're back. So we brought them home. Thanks, Mimi.
So I love that you brought them here. You're about to go for higher and greater spaces. You're going to have a show at Boston College?
That's what I'm hoping for, yes. But to me, the great joy is exhibiting here in Chelsea. Just so much fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tell me when you're ready.
So I'm here with Richard Graff, who's a Chelsea resident and also an architect who's got a good eye. So what do you think of this exhibit?
I think the photographs are astonishingly evocative of a Chelsea that I am getting to know. You know, I've been here for 10 years, but I'm just starting to scratch the surface, and it's really wonderful to see photographs that go back before my 10 years, you know. And the black and white printing is beautiful. It's just a great show.
So what does it tell you about Chelsea from that era?
Well, it's funny, you know, the black and white automatically puts you in a sort of a nostalgic frame of mind and a sort of a more hard scrabble frame of mind. It looked like a pretty serious world, I'd say. Pretty serious world, fairly, well, the kids, soulful looking people.
Is there one shot in particular that stands out for you?
Oh boy, let me just quickly go back and tell you which. Particularly like your poster shot, the one with the shoe shelf in the stores and the parked '64 Ford. So that's the one that stands out most in my memory.
What is it that you like about that one?
I think the car has something to do with it, but it just pulls me back decades into a world that existed in Chelsea before I moved here, that I'm sort of curious about. I've been around Chelsea since I had a client here, the Chelsea Jewish Nursing Home, starting in the early 90s. So I got to know Chelsea then, but just going back in these photos back a few decades before that is fascinating also. So.
I'm here with Diana Larson, who's the Assistant Director of the McMillan Museum of Art at Boston College, and it's where this exhibit is going to eventually go to next.
It is. We're going to actually have more than what's on view here. We're actually doing a full exhibition in our upstairs gallery for Arnie's work.
Now, what made you decide to invite Arnie to the the big time.
Well, I didn't even know anything about Arnie until I went to Chelsea Open Studios. And the reason I went there, which I guess was last year, was my Russian neighbor was exhibiting a painting in the Chelsea Art Walk. And I'd never been to Chelsea in my life. So I thought, I grabbed my friend and I said, let's head down to Chelsea. We can discover the neighborhood. And we parked our car, got out, and my friend saw this Airstream trailer. And she said, I'm just going in there. And she popped in there. And then she peeked out the door and said, you've got to come in here. And I went in there, and it was Arnie's display of his work, and we just were blown away by the quality of the photography. And we have quite a large collection of historic photography at Boston College, and I've been studying it and working with our photography expert there. So I recognize that these were really special photos, not only for their artistic merit, but also for their what stories they tell, and we're all about telling stories in our exhibits.
So what's the story do you see in these photos?
Many stories. I mean, I see stories of individuals, stories of communities, different ethnic groups coming to Chelsea. I see stories of children and memories being made in the neighborhood. I see stories of architecture, buildings and historic sites. We don't have any here particularly, but he has some wonderful series there. Also the firefighters, the history of the fires, and they're so important to this area, and that's a great story. Trying to think of the other stories. We've got quite a few. We've got about 6 storylines we're following. And we have a history department at Boston College, and there's a couple of professors who are spearheading a Boston neighborhood project, and they're actually working on Chelsea, and they're conducting some oral histories and talking to people and looking at demographics and looking at the neighborhood. So we're going to collaborate with them. We're bringing them in to maybe do something to do with the exhibit.
So we might be seeing lots of Boston College students coming through.
I think maybe, yeah, I hope so. That's the whole kind of the goal, because we always like to involve our student community in our exhibitions, or at least in sort of the research and the background of our exhibitions. So.
And when will the exhibit be held?
I can't tell you definitively at this point. It's either fall of I think it's going to be not fall of 2019. It's going to be spring probably of 2020, or possibly fall. It's definitely 2020. Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll mark our calendars now. We're looking forward to seeing it.
We want people from Chelsea to come, and we want to invite people to come to our events. So we'll make sure that everybody gets on the list.
Well, thanks for helping us tell our story.
Great. Okay, good luck.
I hate
Hello, I'm here with B. Cravata, who is the staff person for the Chelsea Cultural Council. What do you think of this show?
Incredible. He has such a history with Chelsea, so many years, all the documentation that he has done. I'm just so glad that he's sharing it more with the public to see where Chelsea was at one time and then where it is now. And I think he's been very, very gracious in making sure that people see his prints, so it's wonderful.
So as somebody who works with a lot of the artists in Chelsea, what does this say about the arts community here?
I think we have a very vibrant art community. I think right now on our cultural assets inventory, we have almost 40 people that have all signed up, and more. I'm sure there are much more, and that we're hopefully to get their names so we can identify where they are in the city. So yeah, I feel that this is just the beginning of many, many shows we hope to have like this, especially at our different lofts like Spencer Lofts or Pearl Street or the City Hall itself.
So I know that the Cultural Council supports some of the local artists. In what ways does it do that?
Every year, starting September 1st, we have our grant season. So September 1st until October 15th, you can place in an application. You can submit an application.
Anybody in Chelsea?
Yes, as long, it doesn't have to be Chelsea, but it has to benefit Chelsea residents. It has to benefit, and arts, humanities, and sciences they're looking for. And so the grant season is online. It's at Chelsea, I think it's chelseama.gov/CCC. You can just Google Chelsea Cultural Council, and it'll come up to the website. And as I said, starting September 1st, it will be online for people to apply.
So, and it's grants to do projects. How much money do people get?
Well, it really depends. People were asking me that today. Depends on how large the project is. There's grants as little as $250, and then there's some people that have gotten several $1,000s of grants, depending on the project. So we look forward. It's going to be our FY19 season, and usually we get about 40 people that apply. And so hopefully this season we will get that or more. Yeah. So anyway, it's great to be here, and what a great day.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome.
So I'm here with Josh Resnick, and without whom this whole exhibit wouldn't have been possible. You were here that helped give Arnie his job.
Yes, I started out a little before him at the Chelsea Record in 1977. Mr. Quigley hired me, unbelievably enough, to be a writer, because at the time I could have applied to 50 newspapers and been rejected gloriously at every one of them. And Mr. Quigley just had this special thing, and I had unbelievable energy at the time. And
so I heard your family had a pharmacy here on Broadway?
only for 50 years. It was called Resnick's Drugstore. And I spent a lot of time there when I was growing up. It was really exciting. I grew up in Marblehead, but I had the advantage of working in my dad's store, and we had properties all over the city, so I would be doing errands. And so I made a lot of friends early on who were Hispanic. It was a different world here, a changing world in the 70s.
So these photographs were part of your life in the newspaper world. Sort of looking at how newspapers, especially local newspapers, have changed from back then. How do you sort of reflect on it now?
The reflection of what you see in the photographs is the era that we lived in, which is now 40 years ago. That's not 140 years ago, when looking at these will be exotic. But these have reached the point of, they generate a self-importance just because of the time. They're a reflection of a time and an era in this city that is irretrievably gone. The city changes every 5 years anyway, the population of people here. So the city it's like the earth turning and our lives changing. It's always ongoing. And so these photos are, they're an incredible remnant of a time long past. And looking at them is looking at my life from that era. I know everyone in the photographs. I lived on the street as a writer. Arnie lived on the street with his camera. It was extraordinary. We both grew up in Marblehead, and we came here after college. People just don't do that because they're not Arnie and I. And it's never left us, the spirit and the love of the city, just everything about it. Every hill, every building. It's a very different kind of environment. Everyone gets to know everyone else with a nod of the head or a pass by. It's incredible.
So what's the same about Chelsea now as compared to then? Where do you see the
sameness is the geography is exactly the same. Bellingham Hill, Prattville, Mill Hill, Lower Broadway, it's all the same.